Hi, welcome to Needing Meeting. My name is Carol. I'll be your host today, and hopefully we'll have some people joining us. I thought we'd work on getting through that video that I started a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Lalich, describing what a cult is, kind of laying it plain, and also sharing her personal experience coming out of a political cult in the 70s. So, since nobody's here, I guess we'll just kind of get going and start sharing that video and see how far we can get. All righty, here we go.
Most people know or maybe don't.
Actually, hello, Steve. So, where we left off, got an echo there, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hi.
Hi, got an echo.
Yep, I'm getting rid of it.
How you doing? Hello, hi, Cosmic. How you guys? So I thought I'd kind of work into this. We got a third of the way into the video. And then also to have it at all. So I thought
Can't hardly hear you at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Where we left off was she was talking about how her mother had gotten a very malignant tumor. How is it now?
It's fine.
Okay. Her mother had gotten. She was in a cult. They reluctantly let her go see about her mother when she went through the surgery and all that she had to go through afterwards to get a very malignant tumor removed from her brain, I believe it was. And, of course, the cult's calling every day. And so that's where we kind of leave off, is where the mother gets sick and the cult's demands on her. Hi, Christy. Oh, can you hear? Anybody there?
Hello.
Hi. Yes. Hi, seventh son.
Steve-O.
Oh, I'll make the meeting room available.
Yeah, hey.
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 So yeah, I thought we'd. Hey. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I tried to warm up my computer today beforehand to see if that helped. So we'll see.
Okay. Maybe. So far, so good, except for
Yay.
a little bit of a lag there, but hopefully that wasn't you freezing. I can't see the smaller thumbnails as well as I can. Yeah, so I won't be able to give much feedback until we're not watching the video anymore. But we got about a third of the way through on this one that we started a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Lalich. And
it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Plant Freak. Stasia.
Hello. Right. I got my Christmas.
Oh, cool. I didn't get my Christmas down yesterday. That just wasn't going to be in the cards. But, all right. Well, I was just starting the video, so I'll see if we can get a little further along.
Yeah.
That it's one of the most malignant type of brain tumors. And so they said, we can operate and remove it, but it'll grow right back. And she'll probably have 4 to 6 months to live. So I was like, okay. So they did the operation, and then she went through speech therapy and physical therapy and all of that, occupational therapy. And then at some point, and every day the cult called me, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I was staying with my aunt, and my aunt said, "Oh, it's so, those people are so nice. They call you every day," not knowing they were calling me to come back. So
Bah
it was
humbug.
time for her to leave the hospital. At some point they want to kick you out. So I called
Okay.
I called my leader and I said, my mom's about to be discharged. There's nowhere for her to go, and I'd like permission to stay here with her until she dies. She has 4 to 6 months to
Oh,
live,
my
and then I'll come
Lanta,
back.
my Lanta. That authoritarian thing. Oh, you have to make sure that you check it with the powers that be.
Can I please stay
Don't
here
know
until
that
she dies?
I have a real problem with that due to my own personal experience that was a little bit similar. Well, quite a bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
And she said, "Oh, well, let me check with, the Queen, the General Secretary." So she called back a little while later and said, "Oh, we have a great idea. Bring your mom out to California." Well, my
Right.
mom was, a little Serbian lady who, I don't know if she'd ever left Milwaukee, was very close to her Orthodox Church, or Serbian Orthodox Church.
Hi, superhero.
So I, like a good militant, I said, "Oh, okay." And they said, "We'll have one of your roommates move out. She can live in your house." So I went back, I got the room ready. I got a walker and all that stuff from the American Cancer Society. And my aunt put her on a plane and flew her out. So she was living in my house, fairly weak, wearing a wig because her head had been shaved, and I had to help her with bathing and things like that. But I still had to work every day. And at some point I said to the cult, "Look, you told me to bring my mom home, but I never see her." And they said, "Oh, okay, you can have dinner with her, 45 minutes for dinner every day." I was like, "Oh, gee." So I did that. And then they decided she should work for the cult. So they had her working at one of our front groups, I don't know, doing filing or something, and somebody picked her up and brought her home. So again, I wasn't seeing her every day because I'd leave at 6 a.m.
Were you wanting to say something, Christy? Were you wanting to
Shock.
say
They
something?
want a woman. I'm just in shock. They have a woman who is that elderly and that sick, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she can do our filing."
Yeah, God forbid there be any dead weight for the cause. The cult that I was in, the people that died, they were basically just sacrificial lambs, and they died either directly in service to the church or as a result of their service to the church. And I mean, it was treated very much
Wow.
just like what she is describing right here. And that's standard MO. That is a cult. That's what they do. It's insane. It's sick.
That
CK.
Hi, CK. Hi, Anik. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So yeah, I get a little wound up about this cult stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And CK, who's talking? What is the woman in the purple sweater's name? I know Dr. Jahanja
Dr.
is
Ramani. Yeah, she's got a channel
Dr.
called
Ramani.
Navigating Narcissism.
Okay. CK had just
Yes.
asked. So yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One must always be of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I was so,
I was just shocked.
I was
Yeah.
so glad to see this as the thumbnail, thinking that we were going to pick this up again because it
Yeah.
was so fascinating the first
Yeah.
time we listened to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on.
Okay.
So one night I came home at about 11 o'clock at night, and I opened the door to her room, and she was lying dead on the floor. And I was just broken. And when I composed myself, I called my best friend who came over, who I had recruited into the cult. And I called I guess I called the coroner or whatever. I called my cult leader again. or my leadership person, who was the second in command. And I said, my mom just died, and I'm having the body flown home. And on the other side of the line, she said in this very harsh voice, well, you're not going home to the funeral, are you?
Oh my God.
And I looked at the phone and I thought, here I am killing myself, right? Working 20-hour days, blah, 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 to build a better world. And if this is the better world we're building, where I'm being told I can't go to my mother's funeral who just died in my house,
Yeah.
there's some, so it was the first time I ever defied the organization. I said, no, I am going. And I borrowed money again and I flew home. I have absolutely no memory. I planned the funeral. I planned in our tradition, we had a big Serbian dinner afterwards in the Serb hall. Neighbors came and her sisters. And halfway through, I got up and left to take a flight back to San Francisco. And when I got back, I was met at the airport and told, report at 10 a.m. to such and such a place. So the next thing I
want to address this thing that Plant Freak is saying here, where she says, that's just incredible to think it happens. But as Carol said, from what I understand, it's a standard MO, even in the cult he grew up in. No personalizing cult experience, though. When they're love bombing you, it's personalization all day long. At the beginning, just, getting you into their lair. Yeah, it is. How is it not your face, Cosmic? I mean, but that's real. That happens. God forbid anything get in the way of everybody slaving away for the so-called cause that's really not doing anything. You're just being fed a lie that you are doing something that's very, very life and death important. Hey, Zelda.
Hi, Zelda.
i.e., clearing the planet, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and theirs was political.
There I was again,
So,
sitting in one of those high chairs with 40 people in front of me.
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say theirs was political. You think of a cult, you think of church, religion, usually, but political is a whole different thing as well. Hi,
It
Cosmic.
can be anything. A cult can be formed around, Heaven's Gate was around aliens.
Yeah. It's just amazing what you learn.
That is interesting, Plant Freak. I feel like now, after history writing this weekend, there was even more culty things that happened in that relationship. I'm sure. Because it's a cult of, that can be a cult too, a cult of, cult of one. She's pretty much describing it, Zelda. She's first naming her, first talking about her experience. I did the first part of this video not last weekend, but Sunday before last. I was going to do part 2 last weekend, but we other stuff needed to be dealt with. It is a meeting after all. And so I thought I'd pick up where we had left off. And, but she is first off describing her experience in a cult and and it shows how they operate and how they treat people, when it's a high coercive control, authoritarian situation. Oh gosh, Anik, she said it at the beginning of the video. It's been 2 weeks now. It was a 1970s militant political cult, and it did have a name. She may end up saying it at some point here. And anyway, welcome everybody. that I haven't said hello to if I haven't. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to just continue here.
And I was criticized for putting my mother ahead of revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And after several hours of being berated for that, not being able to cry, show no emotion, that was a breakdown for me. And that's when I was saying earlier, I knew I had to get out, but I could not figure out how to get out.
Yeah.
I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had a broken down car.
You know, that's by design. You have no resources to get out. You don't know how to even approach it. There's like so many people that I came out of that lost their homes.
Anybody else here?
Hmm?
Is it my audio?
No, it's not just yours.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay. Now
Now
we can hear
now
you
we
now.
can hear you.
Okay. Oh, you
Yeah.
couldn't hear me? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. I thought maybe it was.
Okay, I apologize. No, that,
okay.
you know, that is by design.
Mhm.
They get you so wound up with sleep deprivation that you can't think straight. They want every one of your resources. Anything that you get is church property or cult property. So many people in the cult that I came out of lost their homes to foreclosure, taking out second mortgages, third mortgages to put in the offering basket for some big property, big project that we were going to buy, or some big thing that always never came through. But
Is this the same dynamic that
you know,
that
$50,000 vehicles, brand new, you know, all four of them. Yeah. Yeah.
is
But
is this the same dynamic that why doesn't a woman leave an abusive relationship
yeah.
is the same kind of
Yes. Yeah.
reason why people don't leave a cult is because they have that much control, although you didn't give all the control over at one time. It was taken bit by bit by bit by bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't in a cult,
Right.
but from an abusive relationship standpoint, yes, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
You're so dependent
Yeah.
on the other person, or in this case, other people or entities, that
Yes.
you can't. You're isolated and dependent, which is a very bad way to be. And by the way, Cosmic, you look really pretty today. I like your hair and your. I just wanted to say
Yeah.
that you look really pretty. Not that you don't always look really pretty, but you just. I just thought I'd share that.
But yeah, you know, everything for the revolution, which was it was all fiction, just like the things that people's homes were lost to. You know, they were going to buy this property. All of a sudden, there's no more mention of the property, and we're not moving into the property. And that happened several times. And people took out second mortgages to finance that stuff. And it would just lots of people that had bought homes lost their homes to foreclosure just because of that. There was one family that they had like 6, 7, 8 kids. And I didn't know it until much later that they were, and they were making sure that nobody knew. Because I mean, why would you want people to know? They, with all those kids, they were pitching tents in a park at night, and they had to make sure to get up before it was daylight and get everybody out of there and get everything packed up, get all the kids to school, and then wait until it was dark and pitch their tents again. I didn't find out that that's what was happening till later. I didn't have a place to offer them. I had a little studio, you know, or I was renting a room when I first started going there, you know.
Mhm.
Whew, hello, Lord Kiss Freak.
Did you see Zelda's question?
I did.
Yeah.
You know, you're not allowed to question anything, Zelda. And it's not so, you know, it's a system that's designed to where, you know, in our case, this was the mouthpiece of God. And so to question the mouthpiece of God was to question God, and you just don't do that. You know, it was just this thing that was put in the head. You know, nobody was actually overtly saying, oh, you can't ask any questions. Oh, if you were to ask them if you could ask questions, they would say, yeah, you can ask questions, but they would slap you down every question you would ask that's along those lines. So no, really, you didn't get to ever question anything, much less where your money went. But if your eyes are open, you're seeing where the money's going. All four kids going to major universities and then driving $50,000-$60,000 vehicles. You know, it's not really that big of a mystery. And it's just a matter of you see what you want to see and you don't see what you don't want to see. You don't want to believe that somebody would put you in that position of losing your home for their own selfish personal gain. Surely the mouthpiece of God wouldn't do that.
Right.
Wow, Anik.
I'm so
Well,
sorry.
I'm sorry because that sucks.
Mhm.
And it's just so diabolical and it's so wrong. And it's when you get out of it, you can't believe that you ever got yourself into it. And before you get into it, you could never believe about yourself that you could get into it. You know, just the right situations leading up to things. They know who to target, you know, who to talk to, and yeah. Yeah. So would not be allowed to question, show itself as reactive abuse. Yeah. Yeah, the wrath of God thing. Yeah, you didn't want to incur the wrath of God. Yeah. Oh, Lordy. So anyway, and the price is too big. It's like with what she experienced. She never gets that time with her mother back. She never gets any of that back.
Well,
You know, that's
and could you
that's
imagine
price. Huh?
and could you imagine walking into her room and just finding her deceased on the
No,
floor? Like, I can't
no.
imagine any more just trick way.
Yeah.
Oh, Zelda, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's terrible too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was
And that
she
happens.
was she actively working in the cult when she passed away?
Hmm.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Was she actively working in the cult when she passed away?
The mother?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, both of
Yeah.
them were. Hmm.
She got to see her for 45 minutes a day, and the rest of the time it was back to work. Cosmic, did you see this? Seriously in love with the hair today, Cosmic.
I woke up like this. Yeah, you did. That's the best. Woke up like this.
Nice.
That's
That's
awesome.
great. That's great. So I'm going to start this back up and yeah.
Yeah.
I knew they'd come after me because I knew stuff. And I was just like a walking nervous breakdown, just like a robot. I lived like that for, 4.5 years.
Mm.
So That was my breaking point.
First of all, I'm so sorry.
You know, my husband, I got with my husband a year after I got out of the cult, and several years later into our marriage, he said that at first I was like a Stockholm syndrome person. It was like living with
Imagine.
someone with Stockholm syndrome, and I probably did have something akin to that, you know.
Oh yeah.
And you're just in this tailspin of what just happened? What was that? You don't know. And you really don't want to believe that you sacrificed all that you did for something that was just some narcissist, you know, what's the word? Megalomaniac, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the reason I'm still working at 77 years old. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, it's a good thing that I didn't own any of the family property at that time, you know?
Yeah.
Can you imagine losing, the generations of farmers culminating into the farm that I grew up on? I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'll start this back up.
Dr. Yanya, it's such a devastating story, and one that stays with you in so many ways. As I was listening to that, I think what struck me was, again, it's hard for me not to view this, just lifted that at this is a whole group, but even in an individual abusive relationship, these are the kinds of things that would happen. Why do you have to spend so much time taking care of your mother? Well, this is inconvenience, August. And in a way, it also felt like you were talking about this a horrifically abusive employer. Like, you need to report back. We don't care if this, we don't care if that. But it was obviously not just those things, which are terrible things. It was this larger system that had so enveloped you that there was that bounded choice. There was no choice. I guess my question for you, because you were going through so much raw psychological pain, grief and loss, and starting to recognize that the system you were in, there was something terribly, terribly wrong about what was going on. At this point, when all these terrible things were happening, was the word cult even coming into your mind, or was it that I'm in something really? What was your word? Was it abusive, toxic, problematic? Like, I mean, clearly you knew it was something wrong. Like, what this thing we say we're doing, this revolution, we're trying to make a better world, and yet the world we've created here is actually quite awful. So we're not meeting that goal. What was your framing on when you realized something was wrong?
I don't believe at that time I thought of the word cult. And of course, I don't have any journals from that time because we weren't allowed to have anything like that.
Wow.
I just know that I felt trapped. I felt incredibly trapped. And I knew it was wrong, and it was harsh, and it was hurting other people, and that I had hurt other people. And in those 4 years, a lot of other really crappy stuff happened, both to me and to others. I don't think I used the word cult until the very end, when we all got out.
And so it just, again, crappy situation, bad, it's not good for me. How did you get out?
So basically, those of us who joined, as you said, in those early years, we were pretty burned out, and pretty fed up, and had been around her, her inconsistencies and her madness and her corruption and drunkenness. And she was leaving. She left, it's too long to go into the details, but she left to go to Bulgaria because that was her communist heaven at that point. We basically, the inner circle, basically kind of all looked at each other and said, we're in a cult. And basically we called together all the members and some of the people who'd been expelled. And we had this big meeting in our print shop and tried to tell people behind the scenes. It took about a week to convince people we were telling the truth and not have a coup. And then everybody just started pouring out their stories, how they sold their blood to have enough money for their dues, how they never saw their spouse again after that person got expelled, how they gave their children to the spouse, who, on and on with these horrific stories. And then she was coming back. And so the night before she came back, we took a vote, and we voted unanimously to expel her, and then a second vote unanimous to dissolve the organization. And then we picked a team of people who would meet with her and tell her when she came back. And one of the women wore a wire so that all of us could hear what happened at that meeting. So,
wow, that rarely happens, but I guess it was a small enough group, but I'm guessing, Plant Freak, where you're saying I'm not familiar with that word. Basically, it's a megalomaniac is a grandiose narcissist, basically, in so many words. But there's a diabolicalness to them. Think of horrible dictators, and that's what I'm referring to.
So
Yeah.
basically, you had 120 people who just had the rug ripped out from under them. And you had a very stunned cult leader who was told the party's over. And, we all helped each other with resumes and getting jobs and clothes, because we had no clothes. I mean, a lot of people, like I ran the publishing house, so a lot of people would say they worked at the publishing house, and I'd be their reference. And, we just did whatever we could to support each other. And that was the beginning of my recovery.
And at that point, it became clear to all of you collectively it was a cult.
It became clear to us all for a sliver of time. And then what happened is a lot of the people who had reputations on the left and who wanted to carry on with political work didn't want us to talk about what happened. And the rest of us were like, wait a minute, the left needs to learn from this. And
Zelda, that is who a narcissist will pick, is someone who has no idea what they're getting themselves into. They seem to have a radar to know who to hone in on, as sick as that sounds. And who knows if it's conscious or unconscious. But
Well, and the narcissist and the empath is a real thing, because the narcissist gets huge supply off of very empathetic people. That's like their superfood. So, and please don't be hard on yourself about it, because I think really until you've seen a narcissist up close and you've dealt with it personally, you can't know. Like I know, my ex was amazing at hiding it. Amazing. And, and then you kind of get to this point where you're like, wait, because they can show you that you're crazy. They can teach you that you don't, everything is not true, and you're wrong and they're right, and they turn your brain into mush soup. I mean, so please don't be hard on yourself, because it's one of those things that I wish nobody would know. And I mean, you can educate yourself, but even back then, I don't think people even really, I don't know that the term narcissist was a lot in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I was married to mine in the 2000s, and I didn't understand what it was. So please don't,
one thing about the empathetic person that the narcissist will hone in on and pull into their web. The person with empathy cannot believe that such a thing exists in a human being.
Mhm.
How is that even possible? You know?
Mhm.
So, anybody that's gotten swept up in the narcissist, you can't blame yourself because, you're a trusting individual. You believe that, basically people are good. They do bad things. And you just wouldn't want to even, you can't even fathom that somebody could have no empathy,
Mhm.
no conscience, you know? It's not something that a person with empathy can fathom, would want to fathom,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Steve?
Does anyone else here think, or I don't even know what I think on it, but no one does anyone start out with, okay, I'm gonna put a cult together for my own narcissistic megalomaniac ways and start duping people out of all their money and their property and everything, or does it evolve into that? I mean, at at, at some point, don't they have a cause to believe in themselves, the leaders, and then
You,
that's I'm having a hard time putting that
well,
together.
I mean, that would be a question for the person that has started a cult. And it would be, the onus would be on them to be honest,
Mhm.
which I don't know that that is possible.
I think it probably does start because they're so grandiose. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't I think that on some level, yeah, they really do. Because they cannot a narcissist, and I can't speak to cult leaders because I've not, but narcissism I can. They can't fathom that they're even wrong. They can't
yeah,
fathom that there's not a person out there who would not like, they don't understand why people aren't just worshiping the ground that they walk on, you know
right.
whereas like
Yeah,
an average person would be like, oh, this person doesn't like me, what is it about me, do I need to change something, whereas a narcissist is like, what's wrong with you that you're not falling down and worshiping at my feet, like, so I think that, and again, we've got to remember, narcissistic personality disorder is a mental issue, so their mental capacity is different. And but I do, from a narcissist point of view, yeah, I mean, I think they probably really do wake up one day and are like, you know what? I can do this better than they can do it. And then they end up, I mean, look at David Miscavige, well, I can do this better than L. Ron Hubbard. And then now look at where they are. Um, so yeah, I do. Um, I think he didn't
Ew.
get jaded, but he's used what I taught him as,
Wow.
they'll use things against you. It's what that's their MO, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything that you say, there is literally not one thing you can say to them that will not ever be used against you. It is
that's right.
all used against you. So unless you just
You
keep your mouth
just
shut
been used
forever,
against you, yes. Yeah,
yeah, and that's another thing, because you go back and you do kind of beat yourself up over it. You're like, well, if I wouldn't have said this, or if I would have said it differently, it wouldn't have mattered. And that's the thing I
yeah,
want everybody to understand, is that it doesn't
yeah,
matter. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how you said it. It doesn't matter how kind you were or how angry you could have been. It literally would not have mattered, because their brain does not allow them to process things in a normal, I hate that word, but a normal way. So it wouldn't have mattered.
yeah,
Would
yeah.
not have mattered. So
I
I
would
think
tend
that
to
you're
agree,
jaded,
yeah.
but please
Mhm.
don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah. please don't be too hard on yourself about that.
That's right.
Because it's easy. It's easy to be hard on yourself, especially when you're looking back, you know.
Yeah.
And
What do you mean we can't talk?
I apologize. I didn't mean to start it back. I accidentally hit the button. Oh. Really? Okay.
so
That's
then,
amazing.
Mandra, there's a difference between narcissistic tendencies and actual narcissism. Narcissism, like real narcissistic personality disorder, is like bipolar, and you don't just overcome it. Narcissistic tendencies, you can, and they can get out of control. It sounds more like you had tendencies as opposed to being diagnosed like a full-blown narcissist. And in which case, people who have narcissistic tendencies or histrionic disorder can, with therapy, really overcome those things and become more self-aware. So good for you that you know, like realized that, and I'm assuming got therapy, and you know, and for your daughter, like that's really beautiful.
Amazing. That is so
You know,
amazing. Great work.
it is, and it goes to show, you know, there's we throw around that term narcissism a lot, you know, but there is a big difference between tendencies and actual diagnoses. And you know, the person I'm talking about, that is a diagnosis. That's not me just like, I mean, so there are, and everybody is a little narcissistic. You have to be for survival. And tendencies, you know, I feel like there's a lot in life that's situational. I've been through a lot that's situational. I know everybody else has. And sometimes it just expounds it. But good for you that you know, went and you know, that's amazing. You know, if you are self-aware like that, that's awesome.
That is awesome. You know, a lot
That's
of times
really good.
Right, if you're given the right space, you can a lot of times figure this stuff out without having to pay the gazillions of dollars in therapy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or find the people that have paid the gazillions of dollars in therapy.
Yeah, those too. Yeah, that too. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, are we having a meeting around this, or do we want to watch it a little bit more?
Let's watch a little more.
Okay. But yeah.
So a kind of a split happened also about what happened to the assets, because we had a print shop, we had a publishing house, we had the doctor's office, we had something like 80 computers in 1985 when people hardly, that was a lot. And so we ended up having to take a vote for that as well, and our side won. And a few years later, we each got a check for like, I don't know, $120 or something. You know, it's like your 10-year pension. So that was a bit of a struggle that went on for over a year between people, mostly by letters, because it was even before email.
Yeah. No, it was and then it became clear. It didn't become clear. So it was the dismantling of this really was much more that this was unhealthy, this was wrong, this was corrupt, but not that this was a cult.
Right, for some of the people, and for a minority of the people, and even for myself. And so that kind of gave me the word cult. But when I was in New York, at the time, nobody talked about political cults. Everything was religious cults, right? Or gurus, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, maybe we weren't a cult. So I actually sat down and I made these lists. And this is what I have a lot of people I work with do. So, you know, I'm like, okay, religious cult. They have Jesus. We had Marx. They had the Bible. We had a book called The Training of the Cadre. they had this, we had that, they had, and I was like, yep, we were a cult. Right? And then I started going to conferences and speaking and, letting people know there aren't just religious cults. And of course, now we know today there's every kind of cult imaginable.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you said, though, at that point, began your recovery. And what does recovery, when a person has their eyes open, I was in an abusive organization, took some time before you recognize it as a cult. But what is recovery from that like?
We have to accept that we'd been had, that we'd been duped.
Yeah.
We have to accept the things we did to other people or saw. And then there's, you're basically left with a shattered self, right?
Yeah.
So I was 40 years old and I felt like I was 15. I felt like I didn't know how to cross the street or open a bank account. And then I was, and you also feel like you're this alien being. I would go on these businesses in New York, the cult Mecca, right? I hadn't seen a movie. I'd seen 3 movies in 10 years. And I'd talk with business clients and I didn't know what the hell to talk about. I was like from Mars. So there's that sense of alienation. There's a shame. You don't want to tell people. There's the guilt of what you did.
Yeah.
There's enormous loss, for you lose friends. You've lost a lot of people along the way. In my case, I was never even allowed to grieve my mother's death.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's everything. And so the best thing is, of course, what we call psychoeducation. Like not at all traditional therapy where you go in and the therapist says, okay, tell me what happened when you were 2 years old. No. You first have to unpack the cults because if you don't, you're still looking at yourself through that mindset. And that's what most therapists don't get, which is why we do some training for therapists at my new nonprofit, because cult survivors need more therapists who get this.
It's absolutely, you're right. Again, the psychoeducational piece is also sort of one of the central pillars of working with survivors of narcissistic abuse. Because once they understand what the traumatizing system looks like, once they understand what this is, and I think it's the hiding in plain sight of it too, is that a narcissistic person is often quite successful in the world at large, right? This is not someone who's looking surly everywhere. And everyone's pitying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
You're in a relationship with this person. Everyone's thinking, oh, you're so lucky, you're part of something, or you're part of this relationship. But everything that you're sharing here, the one you started with was an interesting one to me. You have to accept that you've been had, right? And I understand that to be the subjective experience of a survivor, whether in a cult system, in a narcissistic relationship. From my seat as a therapist, I think that when we feel we've been had, we feel foolish. Like we've been played, right? Like somebody just did a street con on us.
Yeah.
But in fact, what had happened was all the healthy functioning parts of yourself, a desire to belong, a commitment to a cause, a drawing to like-minded people, healthy parts of yourself were drawn into something. Right? In a relationship, it might be you saw something in this person, that you believed in love, that you wanted to build a life with them, healthy stuff. And then to find out that in fact, that's not what the social contract was on their side. It does feel like being had, but it's not really that you were foolish. It wasn't that you were foolish and got played by a street con because you rolled up to a game of 3-card Monte. It's more that you had gone in with all the best parts of yourself and ran into something harmful. Is that self-forgiveness in that process, that this was the best of you, you were taken advantage of, and that exploitativeness is an important part of the psychoeducation on what happens to anyone in these systems.
I mean, I get asked all the time, is there a certain personality type who joins a cult? And I'm like, you know what? If there's any common denominator, it's idealism. It's people who want a better world.
100%. Plant Freak, you're gonna be struggling with that for a while. I'm sorry to be the bearer of that news, but it takes a while to unpack it all. It just does. It's going to. There's no getting around it. and I hate it, but you know, it won't, it doesn't happen all at once. Just like you didn't get sucked in all at once, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna go on here. We've gotten a pretty good ways in.
World, a better
Yeah.
self, a better family, a better belief, spiritual belief, whatever. But it's not because people, as I said earlier, are stupid, weird, crazy, lazy.
Yeah.
That's not who cult members want.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, cult leaders want. And so while you have to accept that and went along with it, you also have to realize that there was nothing wrong with you.
Right.
Like this happens to everybody. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And the forgiveness is so much more about self-forgiveness,
Yeah.
which is one of the courses we taught, forgiveness of self. I always say, you don't have to forgive the cult leader. Lord knows. I mean, there's all this sort of mindfulness woo-woo stuff today about forgiveness. No, you don't ever forgive the person who abused you. Who you have to forgive in this context is yourself.
Yeah. No.
And deep understanding, because they don't deserve bupkis.
They don't deserve bupkis. They sure as hell don't deserve forgiveness. I think to me,
No.
forgiveness is a rather divine state, and it implies that there will be meaningful change when someone receives that forgiveness, and that a lot of people put forgiveness of other ahead of forgiveness of self. And it's that, again, you brought the best of yourself. But you just said something so interesting I want to come back to, which is that cult leaders, cult groups don't want lazy and crazy. Talk more about that, because
When she's talking about forgiveness, so it was really difficult for me at one point to forgive my ex for what was done. But I realized that in order for me to move on, I did have to forgive myself. And to a point, I did forgive him. I had to find that positive side of what was in it, because otherwise I would hate the man that gave me my children, and I could just never do that. I could never hate someone who gave me such beautiful humans. And so for me, and I know everybody sees forgiveness as different. I did have to forgive myself, but I did have to find something in him that was good, because not everything is all bad and not everything is all good. And I did have to find something that I could forgive so that I could move on. Because if I didn't, I would definitely not be sitting here being the person that I am today.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who is called to forgive, we always say, well, forgiveness is, it's for yourself, it's not for them. And that is true. I do believe that. I do believe, though, that that part for me would have just eaten me alive if I wouldn't have found something positive and something to forgive, which is why he saved my life, because he saved my life and he gave me my children. Those are the two things I came up with. Everything else wasn't great. But so I just wanted to say that. So if there's anybody out there who is forgiving, this person, I don't want you to feel like you are not justified in doing that. And it is a hard place to get to. And I just had to do that. So I just wanted to address that. If there is somebody who's like, but I did forgive, now I could go stand next to him. And when my daughter has her wedding reception next year, I can stand next to him and smile for a picture for my daughter,
Yeah.
But that's something I had to do, again, for me, and not everybody is going to forgive. And Stasia, you're really early into it, and you don't have to forgive right now. I didn't forgive, I didn't just come out the gate and be like, well, I forgive you. That was a long journey myself. And just because it was mine doesn't mean it's everybody else's. It does not mean that that is how that needs to look. But
Yeah.
for me, so that I wasn't eaten up with bitterness, it's what I had to do. And I just wanted to say that because, we get told a lot, I feel like we either get told two things: forgive unequivocally or don't forgive at all. And I think there is a middle ground. And I just kind of wanted to kind of
Yeah.
say something in case somebody's watching later on.
Yeah. When it comes to my brother, I still have not been able to move past. To forgive feels like I'm giving him a pass, and I'm not about to do that.
Well, that was my
Right.
question.
Mhm.
What are these for the most part? It seems like these abusers and these cult leaders and these narcissists, are they even really interested in your forgiveness?
Nope,
No,
not a bit.
not at all. No, they don't care.
No.
If I were to walk up to my ex, say, you know what, I have forgiven you, I would get laughed at in my face. He would be like, for what? I don't know. I didn't do anything to you. Um, but like I said,
Yeah.
it was something that I did for me. But no, they don't care because again, they don't see
No.
that they did anything wrong. The
That's
truly now
right.
if you're, like Mandrew and you have tendencies and you've come to realize that, then yes, that would be important for him because he's, not a full-blown narcissist and he can understand that. I'm not speaking for him, but comparing the two. Um, but my ex-husband, no, absolutely would unequivocally not even care. He would be like, well, if you whatever.
Does
Um,
Mandrew and Plant Freak have a history?
they've got a
Yeah.
daughter together.
Thank you. God, that was
Yeah.
confusing the crap out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. But and like I said, where I got to and the road I was on isn't everybody's road, and it took me a long time to get there. A
Yeah.
long time, a lot of money, a whole bunch of different psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and DBT training, and believe me. But like I said, I just wanted to say that for somebody who might be listening down the road. I don't want you to feel like you're an an odd person out if you've forgiven them, if you've found that in yourself. And it's okay if you haven't. It's okay if you have not.
Yeah.
Like I think that's important to acknowledge that.
It is. And also the whole thing of, there's no need to put any pressure on yourself to forgive.
Right.
Because
Yes,
if you're just going to say, well, I'm going to forgive him, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen like that.
Mm-mm.
It does. It just,
No.
it's not, you cannot just decide one day you're forgiving that person. It's a process.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. It is very hard to forgive, especially like she says, when you never get any sort of acknowledgement or apology, and
Yeah.
that is a hard
Yeah.
place. And like I
It is
said,
hard.
not everybody will. Not like I'm better or anything than anybody else. Not everybody. For me, it's what I had to do for myself in order to move on. And but like Michael, he doesn't forgive anybody. So
for me, it was very healing to let go of that you have to forgive thing that I came out of in a cult,
Yeah.
Boy, that can be manipulated to death.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So for me, it was very healing to go ahead and allow myself to be angry as F.
Right.
And I'm still kind of, holding on to that little bit of, and it's, I don't feel like I'm harming myself.
No. Mm-mm.
Allowing myself to feel everything that I grew up with and had to feel,
Mm-hmm.
all the way
Right.
into my mid 50s, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And like I said, you don't have to forgive. You don't have to forget nasty things were
yeah.
done to you. And by no means do you have to say okay about that. And I just, like I said, I just kind of felt like maybe there would be somebody watching somewhere else that, might be like, well, was I wrong to forgive him? you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because
and I understand what you're saying about forgiving for your own health.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But to not deal with the damage that was
yeah,
done and to feel the anger at the person who did it can also be very
oh, yeah,
unhealthy.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
for me, it's not going to be sincere and it's not going to be true
right,
forgiveness until I walk all the way through that,
yes.
you know?
And and some people never walk through it, and that's okay too. Like, I mean, it was, it was not easy and messy.
Yeah,
Can you hear me
Because
now?
it's very
yes,
messy.
we can hear you now.
Oh, my son's unplugged my pop stand, so.
Oh,
Oh, it's
no.
okay. He's got into gaming on my computer. It's fine. At least it's getting used. But yeah, no, I was just trying to say that the particular church that I was with, they forced me to forgive my first abuser. Otherwise, I would not get into. I've already spoken about it, and it took me a good 6 months. And you know what? I did, and because in the end, the hatred I felt only hurt me, and so I actually don't hate anyone. Like even my last abuser, I don't hate him. I dislike him immensely, but there's no hatred there. Like
Yeah.
because I actually try not to think about him too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Right.
because if I think about it,
If you still hate them, aren't you giving a little bit of control back to them?
I
well,
don't
that's what I
know.
figure. Well, that's what I figure. Like I was talking to Stacia about it yesterday. Like, I still have this immense fear. Like, if I see a particular car, I freak out
Yeah.
until I see the number plate. But
Mhm.
it's like, but I've got to, now that I'm taking this medication. Yeah, now I'm taking this particular medication. It's calming me down a little. I'm still feel like I'm walking through sand. I'm still sleeping majority of the day. But when I forgave this first abuser, I actually got an apology.
Okay.
So he did recognize what he did to me was wrong, and then but for the next, because he was stalking me for years, like I left him in 2012 or 11 or something like that, and he wasn't allowed to contact me for 4 years, and then after that 4 years, I started getting all these like Facebook profiles of different names and blah blah blah. So but after
Oh,
that,
yeah.
after I got the apology, he stopped that. And then recently he sent me all these messages blaming me for his life. I'm like, dude, I haven't been in your life for however long. Whatever you've been doing now is up to you, not my fault.
Yeah.
So I just,
Right.
it's like, not my fault.
I
So,
want to answer Steve's question. Steve, for me, it's healing. It's healing and powerful to go ahead and let him be the person to blame for what he did to me. There's
Right.
power in that for me at this juncture.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
This
Because,
is not
my nature to be easily forgiving, well, then that means that I don't acknowledge what they did to me was wrong, and it was wrong,
Mhm.
So
Well,
that's me
Yeah.
personally.
I still blame them. It's still not my
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and
there are so many levels and layers and just subterfuge going on with this. This is not a cut and dry, black and white thing that you can just sit down in a couple of psychotherapy sessions get figured out. This is deep and heavy stuff.
It is.
Yeah, well, I do therapy, like clinical therapy, like a psychotherapy. Was it clinical psych? I see a clinical psychologist every Monday, and we still haven't touched on anything. Like he says that we're still walking around, we're tiptoeing around the major issues because at the moment, I still find it difficult to talk on the big things because they're big things, you know.
Right.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. Everybody's journey is different, even though Carol, Cosmic, and I have all gone through the same type of thing as far as narcissism and abuse and how that looks. We all handle it very differently. We all have our own experiences with it. And I think that's beautiful too, because it shows that there's no one way that it looks like, and it's tragically beautiful, I guess, in some way. Like, you know, it's if you're gonna have to go through it, you might as well, you know, I think it's a good thing that we all talk about it, because people could be like, oh, you know, I understand where Carol's coming from. Don't understand where Christy's coming from, but I get where Carol's coming from. Or Cosmic makes a lot of sense. Don't know what those other two are talking about, but you know, and I think it's just helpful. You know. Yeah.
To be honest, I also hate the word sorry, because sorry means nothing without changed behavior.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, you can
I
say
do say
you can
or an acknowledgement on the person, from the person that you're saying sorry to. I think it means nothing if you don't even get an acknowledgement that they, I don't even want to say treated, that the way they manipulated you was unhealthy for you. And when you don't get some kind of acknowledgement back from that, where's the catharsis in that?
Yeah.
Well, I used to say to them, I never used to force my kids to say sorry. I used to say,
oh yeah,
you know, like I used to say, you know, unless you change your behavior, sorry doesn't matter.
right.
That's true.
Well, and
Truth to that.
and you know what's really weird coming out of it is coming from a relationship that I was in to a relationship that I have now, which by no means is perfect, trust me. But being able to fight and argue and get through it and learn from it and go on, to hear somebody say, I'm so sorry I did that to you. I'm so sorry that you felt that way. And to have it be a man is very different.
Yeah.
For me, that took getting used to. So, you know, my dad was amazing and wonderful and kind and empathetic. And then it took, then I got used to this other person that was not that. And then now I'm getting used to somebody that is those things. So, you know, when Michael does, I think, make a good effort not to do the same thing. He doesn't perfect.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, I think it depends on the person, you know, and I know a lot of, I'm sorry for this, or I'm so sorry that happened, because I don't really know what other words to say. But I'm like you, Cosmic. I never made my kids apologize, or I wouldn't be like, unless you're really sincere about it, I don't want to hear it. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of harsh. But
Right.
you know,
And
there's the
that
other
whole,
side.
I'm sorry, but, and then they turn it back around on you. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna work. That's no
Yeah.
sense.
You know.
I've heard that in my
Yeah.
marriage, and I have a good marriage, but I've heard that in my marriage, and it's and it's hollow and shallow and meaningless sometimes.
And
But
And
we've all done it.
Yeah.
I know I have.
she's home today, so I have to be careful.
I'll
You know,
still say sorry, like,
yeah.
but I actually mean it, like, like,
No, the I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but,
Yeah.
oh, I'm
or
sorry,
you're
but
right, but.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way to do that without just totally canceling out the fact that you just said I'm sorry. There's a way to address beef that still exists in that other person's mind and heart. There's a way to do it, but the but word is not it.
yeah.
And
Well,
that is difficult. Yeah.
It is.
well, see, me and my son have
In
come
the
to this thing now. Like
South,
when we
we
get, sorry, no, you go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say in the South we just say, "Bless your heart, honey. We'll pray for you."
I love that. I use that because I've got my friends from Texas, and so now when I'm trying to be sarcastic, I'll be like, "Bless your heart."
Right? Yeah. It's a really good way to say something.
Well, it's nicer than
But I
saying.
didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. My son have come to this
Yeah.
agreement now, where because we get a bit tetchy with each other because he's 23. We've lived together for a long time, except for this like 2-year stage where he was out of home. So, but we know buttons. We know which buttons to push, and so we've come to the stage now where instead of continuing on the argument where it gets to the point where we start yelling at each other, we just go, "Stop. It needs to end. We'll come back to this later and talk about it when we're a bit calmer." And it's working, like,
Mhm.
because I will argue. I'll just keep going.
No, not you.
Oh yes. So because like if I'm right, I will keep going until I'll just keep going. And also if I feel attacked, because I'm sick of being attacked, I'm sick of being made to feel lesser, and so I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And I am the boss of this house. It's my house. So don't treat me like I'm lesser.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's come to the
Right.
point now, it's just like we will separate and come back and talk about it calmly later. So it's
Good.
taken a while to get to that stage, but it's just like I'm so sick of drama. I've had
Yeah.
enough.
But that's a healthy
So
place to
it's a
be. That's a really
yeah,
healthy place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
I agree. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I agree
It's like
too.
that setting the boundaries, um
but it was actually my son who
we
came up with it. So
Right. Okay.
hey,
Right.
that's
Amazing.
awesome. That's
It is.
awesome.
he's an amazing.
So
I'm so proud of him. And I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
God.
To have
well, that would be really interesting
Um,
for me and Michael because we are never together. You would be standing in the middle of Walmart.
My kid would not be up for that. Me neither. My housemate would be like, "Oh my God, what's going on here? I'm moving out."
You're like, wait, no.
Well, at least it wouldn't be a fight. My kid would run away.
Well, or Michael always he says something really stupid that will make me. You can't be mad when you're laughing, and then it's just like, I mean, and we do come back to it, but if it gets too
My wife
heated,
can.
oh, I can't. If it gets too heated, I'm like I have to go. Like, don't call me for a while. Don't call me, I'll call you. Kind of thing. you know.
That like Hobbit
It,
hang
it,
up.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's how
I've hung up on him. Yeah.
that's how I used to deal with my bullies at school, because I used to get bullied right up until grade 9 or whatever, because apparently my eyes are too wide. I used to get called fish face or whatever, and
Oh,
I had like a weird Kiwi
Oh.
accent. I know, yeah, it is what it is. But
why are kids so mean like that?
kids are mean.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
They
Kids are
are.
just mean. Sorry, I got the hiccups.
Mhm.
So I ended up learning how to joke. I ended up being a comedian. So I ended up your bully doesn't want to bully you if they're laughing at you or with
Right.
you. So I ended up, fighting the bullies with comedy. So they, if I was laughing at myself when they were laughing at me, it didn't matter. So I ended up
Right.
being a comedy, and I didn't get bullied for the rest of high school, so it was fine.
Right on.
And that's
Yeah.
That's
that's
awesome.
why, yeah. So that's what I try to teach my kids, and just come back at them with humor.
Right on. That's
Yeah.
Well, or
it's
if
a good
you
way to
acknowledge
disarm
it,
somebody.
yeah,
You know,
like I mean, that's why to this day, everybody calls me a hobbit. I used to be bullied for being short all the time. So if you're like, yeah, I'm a hobbit, what about it? It takes the oomph out of it.
Yeah, take
yeah,
Yeah, what a
exactly.
what a genius to make a short joke out of a short person. You're right on target there, pal.
Yeah, so I'm short too. So like I climb supermarket shelves because I refuse to ask anyone for help.
I do the same
I do
thing.
too.
Actually, off topic. One time I was getting the creamer that I wanted was on the top shelf, and I was like looking around because I will ask somebody for help. I'm not proud. I will ask. There was no one around. So I was like, all right. So I just like scaled the refrigerator section, like opened the door and was like climbing up the thing. And I got like 4, they're like in these cardboard cartons, my creamer is. And I turned around and there was like 6 construction guys standing there and they just started clapping. And I was like, how long have you been there? And they're like, well, we didn't want to like interrupt you because you were determined. And I was like, well, thank you for the applause. But I mean, I scaled that like a pro. I was like hanging on by one hand, like grabbing with the other, chucking them over my shoulder. So, but I will ask for help if somebody's around. But yeah, that's my funny story.
No, I won't. I'll just like look around, make sure no one's around, but I also ride the trolley down the aisles because I'm short enough and light enough so I can go back.
What Walmart was this? I'd like to get the security tape for that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I tell you, me and Walmart, we're not a good match. The one here in town. My Aunt Lil, whenever I'm like really angry, she's like, "Now, honey, don't go to the Walmart. We don't want to bail you out." I'm sure I've ended up on the people of Walmart a couple times.
Oh.
I just have fun
You
when I'm
know.
shopping because I hate it.
Miss Colwell, I thought we've asked you not to come back here again.
I literally so there was one time where I did almost get thrown out of the Walmart. It was me and another lady, and this other lady,
I'm not shocked.
she was not being nice, and I had it, and I just looked at her and I was like, come at me. Come on, let's go. Where you want to go? And they threw her out, escorted her out, and then told me, they're like, you can't have any more groceries. Go pay and leave. So yeah,
Oh, no.
it was
7th, if there's something going on over at Tommy's, do you guys want to end it and so everybody can go over
Yeah.
there if they want to?
Yeah, he does
Yeah.
it. He does a religious thing on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
we
It's
want them-
Sunday
Oh,
there.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
nice.
Monday morning here.
All right.
I got
Well,
Mondayitis.
how do we want to leave off on this one?
Let's just do our serenity and
Okay.
Sounds good.
All righty. So if we aren't doing the box breathing thing, we do a thing where we have a moment of silence to reflect, and it's in a moment of silence for the person that's still in their addiction suffering or in their behavior suffering, unable to see a way out, those who are struggling to recover, because we know that's real, and those we've loved and lost. And then we follow that with the serenity. I don't know if you want to call it a serenity prayer, serenity meditation, serenity mantra, whatever works for you, however you like to see it. And yeah. Grant me the serenity
grant me the serenity
to accept the things I cannot change,
to accept the things I cannot change,
courage to change the things I can,
courage to change the things I can,
and wisdom to know the difference.
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Huzzah!
Huzzah.
Huzzah! Okay.
I love you guys.
Love you.
All
All right.
right.
I'm gonna go
I'm
to
ganged
bed.
up. Going to bed.
All
Wow.
right.
Tired. This
On the
medication.
rumble. Okay. See you there.
All right, everybody.
I have
Good
to go out
night.
in the barn, so if it's still going, I'll see you there when I get out of the barn.
All right.
All
Have
right.
a good
You
night.
See you
too.
tomorrow.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Peace, y'all.
Love you.
Love you
Peace.
too.